The long national nightmare in the national capital is over. Well, almost over. And I say national nightmare because every football fan was impacted by the horrendous ownership of Daniel Snyder in Washington. We were all punished by the last quarter century of Washington football. And when I say, quote, almost over, it's because the big news yesterday was not exactly final. In fact, it's the opposite of final news. The Snyders reached a preliminary, non-exclusive, unsigned, and unapproved agreement. Could it be any less definitive? All of that to sell the team to a group led by Sixers co-owner Josh Harris. But yes, generally safe to start celebrating. Congratulations, Commander fan. You did it. You did it.
We did it.
You did it. Congratulations, actually, to everybody, because everybody wins here. You don't. Oh yeah. You don't have to stress. It's like a rave up in here. Dan's gone. You don't have to stress about the particulars of the deal because at this point, essentially, it's clear. It's over for Dan Snyder. A deal is inevitable. It's only a matter of time. Commander fan, you are free. Free at last.
Inevitable.
In fact, we're all free. Free at last. His tenure there can be summed up as such. Horrible owner, worst person. Worst owner ever, perhaps, and an even worse person. I mean, find me one person anywhere not named him that likes him. Hell, find me one person anywhere not named him that doesn't pretty much hate him. So if this comes to fruition and he really is out, that is one of the greatest days ever for Commander fan because this dude took over one of the greatest franchises in any sport and he ran it right into the ground. But here's the incredible thing. Worst owner ever, even worse dude, put a garbage product on the field, was engulfed in scandal constantly, off it, legacy and reputation destroyed. He tried to somehow destroy this great franchise, yet somehow through all of this asset appreciated insanely. Look at these numbers. The Harris Group has put up a bid of $6.05 billion. With a B, billion. An entire $1.5 billion more than the Broncos went for last year. An absurd $5.2 billion more than Snyder paid for it back in 1999. So the dude might end up making $5.2 billion in profit in 24 years after doing the worst job ever. No owner was a bigger disgrace, yet he's walking out with the biggest bag ever. Imagine if you weren't one of the worst owners and worst dudes ever. Imagine what they'd be worth if you won anything while leading that team, or had a stadium built this century, or had a quarterback in this century, or had not spent the last 24 years eroding and corroding and ruining a brand that was once one of the marquee brands in all of sport. Despite all that, this dude is going to somehow walk away with over $6 billion. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not trying to tell Josh Harris and the company how to spend their money. In fact, I'm applauding Josh Harris and the company for throwing this kind of absurd paper around to rid us of the worst owner in sports. Listen, bottom line on Snyder, this dude had to go. He had to go about a decade ago. But those good old rich billionaires have a funny way of covering themselves, right? For a couple of reasons. Snyder was far from the only owner with horrific bleep to hide. Maybe more so than the others, but far from the only one with horrific bleep to hide. And if his peers were coming for him, you know that he's dirty enough to go into the closet and start ripping skeletons out. So they don't want to fire one of their own. That's the last thing they want to do. They don't want to fire one of their own because they know if they do, folks, or the aforementioned fired, will start poking around their business. But this dude was so jacked up, they had no choice. He was never going to sell on his own. They were going to have to pry that franchise out of his cold, scummy, dirty hands, which is what they did. Allegedly. Hopefully soon. And not a second too soon, because this guy did everything he could to kill that franchise, and yet somehow it survived. Somehow, shockingly, it appreciated several times over, even under the worst ownership ever. Even though this guy didn't win a damn thing, even though this guy was generally despised by everybody, even though he ran that franchise like it was the creepiest frat house ever. When he bought that team in 1999, he said it was, quote, the most wonderful thing that's ever happened to me. Yeah, well, it was the least wonderful thing that ever happened to Washington football fan. The least wonderful thing that ever happened to any football fan. One of the worst things ever to happen to the NFL. The only thing that could have made that tenure any more embarrassing was if he had had a right arm, hand arm woman bragging about she and how she was his silly wabbit. So what? Awesome. No self-glossing, silly wabbit. It's a rule in the jungle. No self-glossing, and you just admitted it.
What?
Barbara Walters was like, is that what that racist calls you? No. That's what I call myself.
His what?
Oh, so you self-glossed. Right. Beat it, wabbit. Now you're done, wabbit.
Now I'm done.
How could it have been worse? I don't know if Snyder had a terrible band with some terrible music that he forced on everybody. This is the company we're talking about, though, when it comes to Snyder. That's how he's going to be remembered, right up there with the worst dude ever rafters. He'll be up there in the worst dude ever rafters, along with Donald Sterling and James Dolan trying to climb higher. Good riddance, bro. Don't let that door hit you, nor your $6 billion on the way out. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell to be the first to know when we do upload a new video.